heard a rumor yesterday that Kevin Hart was in the building, and then somebody else thought that Billy Bob Thornton was here too. But it turns out it was just me they were talking about. So we got that one in there. Kind of nervous for some reason. What? You think smoking's bad, right? Well, what if I told you 3 times as many people die from diabetes every year as they do from cancer? Yet every time I open a Snickers bar, nobody says a word. Do you know the leading cause of lung cancer? It's not cigarettes, but it's your DNA. Some people smoke their whole lives and nothing ever happens. The whole anti-smoking campaign has been to control the farming of tobacco. I use these arguments, even though I just made them all up, right? But I used these on some friends of mine because I wanted to get their reaction. The results were 5 of them believed me. 2 of them started smoking. No, they didn't. But people trust us in the healthcare arena. And words can be powerful. Words, when articulated, can affect decisions, the decisions people make. And words, when articulated with the right motivation, with passion, can be life-changing. Both good and bad. But we have the power that oftentimes we forget about or take for granted. We have the power to alter people's healthcare decisions and make their financial situations much better. But only if we choose to communicate. And I think oftentimes that's the missing link, is we have to communicate to the end user, the consumer, teach them how to be consumers of healthcare, teach them to shop for x-rays and MRIs like they do for washers and dryers. Right? My own sweet, dear wife of 34 years often forgets to shop for healthcare, just goes wherever, right? And then we get this bill and I go, what is this? So I think we have it in us. We have the power in our hearts and our brains to alter people's places in life financially by teaching them how to use the healthcare system. I believe that we can alter the course of health insurance, and I believe that history will show that we did, if we choose to communicate to the end user and teach them to ask, how much is it, right? The butterfly effect, a small initial localized change leads to dramatic results. A butterfly on one side of the globe flaps its wings, creating a stir that ends up being a tropical storm on the other side of the earth. That's the FMMA the last 11 years. Before I go to the next one, I'm going to give you some examples about communication, education, asking questions. I thought about hundreds, right? And probably everybody in this room could give hundreds of examples. So instead of using clients, customers, friends, family, I decided to just use personal examples for perspective. A couple years ago, my wife woke up with arm numbness, and I was like, hey, you need to get to the doctor. Like, that's not something we mess around with. She went to a doctor who's employed by a hospital, who's not owned locally. I know. But she did, and I'm anxiously awaiting the results. So she gets home and says, well, they want me to have an MRI. I go, okay, did you do it? Well, no, they had me walk down the hall and make an appointment. So I go, okay, when's the appointment? She said 28 days. I'm like, do you have arm numbness? Like, we're not waiting 28 days. Hey, Google, MRIs near me. Well, there's one, Evolution Imaging, I believe, Covell and Kelly, right down the street from my house. So I call them. Hey, my wife just came from the doctor, needs an MRI. I wanted to check availability and how much it costs. And they said, yeah, we have an opening tomorrow at 8:30, and it'll be $400. Great. Call the hospital back. My wife just made an appointment for an MRI. I'd like to know how much it is. Okay, well, I don't know how much it is. I mean, you have to talk to, can you transfer me? So 2 or 3 transfers. Yeah, I'd like to know how much it costs. How much what costs? The MRI, the procedure, like how much will it be? Oh, well, with your insurance, it'll be $1,200. Okay, cancel please. I'll do the 400 down the street tomorrow, right? That's my wife, one for me. I've had neck issues for 2 or 3 years now, and it got to the point where I almost couldn't move my neck. And I've had x-rays, I've done physical therapy. Well, a friend of mine, really good friend, referred me to this specialist who I went and saw, and I'm glad I did. And he recommended this injection that goes in your neck, okay? I'm not a medical professional, but the way he explained it, I thought, well, let's try that. So they made me a referral to a different hospital. And I got a letter in the mail, said, we have your appointment for this injection. So I call him. Hey, this is Rich Hess, I've got my referral. Yeah, we got you down. I'd like to know how much it costs. How much, what costs? The procedure, the injection. Well, you'll have to talk to 4 days later, back and forth with him. This nice lady called me. She said, Mr. Hess, I understand you'd like to know how much it costs. What a novel concept. I go, yeah, I would. So she goes, well, based on your insurance, it would normally be $7,000 and change. But because of your insurance, we discount it to $4,000 and change. And your portion will be about $3,000. Okay. And what if I just pay you myself the day I'm there? Ooh, are you referring to self-pay? Sure. Let me look. Oh, we have a special deal on cash pay of $1,200. $1,273. So I can pay you directly the day I'm there, $1,200, $1,300, or run it through my insurance and pay $3,000. Yeah. Can I have a couple days to think about it? She's like, sure. I'm kidding. I'll take the $1,200. So that's a difference of $1,700, $1,800, right? Now, none of this counts what my employer saves by it not hitting my health insurance plan, right? And that's for another day. And everybody in this room gets that. But by me asking questions as a consumer and saving money, I'm also saving my employer money on the health plan because no claims hit it. If they do hit it, they're significantly discounted. One more, just for context, because we all know healthcare comes in different buckets, right? So this is around prescriptions. I have to fill a script one day, and I get a text message, your prescription's ready. It'll be $35. So I go by, I've known my pharmacist for 20-something years. Hey, Susan, here to get my script. Says it's $35. Is that through the insurance, or is that just me paying you? She goes, oh no, that's processed through your insurance. It's much better if you just pay me. I go, well, that's why I'm asking. I don't want you to take a hit, but I want to compare like which way's better. So she looks and she says, well, if you pay me directly, it's $20, not $35. I go, well, again, I'm not looking for like a friend discount. She goes, no, I make a lot more on the 20 because when I file it with your insurance, I just get a dispensing fee. If you pay me 20, it's the difference between my wholesale cost and what I charge you. Well, here's $20, right? Now, I know you're thinking, it's only $15 you saved. Right. But I've heard that there are some drugs that cost more than $20. So if we all start asking those questions, how much can we ultimately save? So I've done some calculations. Dan, you probably remember Beverly Hillbillies. I've done some gazintas, right? 2 goes into 4, 4 goes into 8. So I'm just one guy, no big deal. Remember butterfly effect. And I choose to ask questions which ultimately saves me $1,000 a year. Back in my budget, and I know in the examples I gave it ended up being more than 1,000, we're just going to use 1,000 to be conservative. $1,000 a year by asking how much is it, and or compare and contrast where I should go for care. So what if I got one employer who has 100 employees to teach and educate their employees on how to ask questions, where to go for what. I mean, we heard Josh talk about it. We've heard Dr. Smith talk about it, right? The city of McClellan yesterday, if I'm saying that right. I loved that session. We can find $1,000 a year per person. Well, then that employer saves $100,000, or those employees save $100,000. Maybe between them, they save $200,000 just by asking questions, comparing and contrasting, right? Now that $100,000 stays in that local community. Groceries, gas, restaurants, right? So then I go, well, what if we count 20 employers in little Oklahoma City that have 100 people? Surely we have 20 employers who have 100 people. And all we're asking them to do is educate their employees on being consumers of healthcare, just like they are when they go book a hotel room, right? They use Expedia and Travelocity. So 20 with 100 employees is 2,000 people saving $1,000 on healthcare, and it turns into $2 million in our local economy. I literally had to triple check the 2 million. I kept going back and doing my gazintas because I was like, that just seems too easy, too simplistic. But it's not, it works. Those are small numbers to get to $2 million in our community. Now, for time's sake, I'm going to argue against myself because we only have a few minutes. I'd love to debate and take examples. Obviously, we don't have that kind of time. Here's the main two arguments, if you will, that I came up with. Some of you are already thinking this. Well, one, not everybody spends, and so they can't save $1,000 a year in healthcare. You're right. No doubt. My youngest son probably doesn't spend $1,000 a year in healthcare. Now he spends more than that on his premium, so it depends on what you're counting. But there are thousands, millions of people who spend more than $1,000 a year and or save over $1,000 a year. In fact, just in our little conference, in our little room even, in Oklahoma City, I could probably ask Dr. Smith, hey, how often do you think you save somebody more than $1,000 on a procedure? Every day. He was telling me about one yesterday up in the lobby that he saved him $22,000. We heard Josh talk about yesterday a $480,000 pharmacy claim save. So there are plenty of people who can and will save more than $1,000 by asking questions to offset the ones who don't spend $1,000 a year. In fact, the numbers are ultra conservative because remember, we're not even counting the employer savings. Probably Dr. Carson, if he's around, would love for his employees to ask questions and end up saving $100,000 a year in healthcare spend because they could add another person, add a location, etc. So we're keeping that back in the economy. In fact, that's the second argument that I came up with. Well, Rich, I don't really understand when you say we're keeping it in the local community. If the money is changing hands either way, well, then how are we saving that $2 million? Simple, because it's not going to the big insurance companies, right? Just in my little examples, it's not going to the big insurance companies. It's not going to the hospital conglomerates owned out of state. It's going to my local freestanding facility that I see at church on Sunday. It's staying in my pharmacist's pocket who has a sign on my son's baseball field, right? So we have the insurance companies who are taking it, the hospital conglomerates, etc. Instead, we want to shop local and keep that money in our local economy. So that's where I get that. Listen, I've done a million calculations. We can derail this freight train that is health insurance. If we continue to communicate, we can get it back on track. I don't care about that famous logo on the health ID card. I care about my neighbors. I don't care about your social status, political affiliation, etc. I care about my community and a healthy, vibrant, self-sufficient, capitalistic community that leans on each other. I don't want to see that money continue to go to the bukas and take it out of our small local businesses. I want to live a life that mattered. And I suspect everyone here whether we think about it or not, wants to live a life that mattered. Or you wouldn't still be in this business, because it's hard. But what we forget is people count on us. My friends that I did the fake stories on, invariably, every time we get together, they're asking me hospital questions, or I get this thing on my finger, where do you think I should go to have it removed, right? And we forget, because we're in the forest. But if we communicate and educate the consumers, the end users, then we can literally alter the course of health insurance and keep that money back in our community. I apologize, I got way off on, none of that was in the, So I was in a university the other day. I walked by this, and I've walked by it 100 times. Some of you have probably seen it. And never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. That day, it kind of caught me, and nobody else was around. I stood and I looked at it. I took a picture of it. But that's literally where we're at, right? When the whole FMMA started, it's grown significantly. But when these 600 people turn into 6 million, and those 6 million become 60 million, then the bukas lose control. The cartels become unraveled. So I was listening to a podcaster the other day. I'll close with this, because it was completely random. I love podcasts. I'd never heard of this one. I literally selected it driving home from the office. It sounded interesting, and the podcaster was interviewing a preacher, kind of a famous preacher. I recognized the name. And the podcaster asked him, how'd you get into preaching? Long line of preachers in your family? Nope. Never thought about preaching. But got involved in high school in my church, loved it, felt called, got more and more involved. So I went to the senior pastor at the time, who became my mentor, and I said, how do I know if I should be a preacher? And the older gentleman said, if you don't have to preach, don't. But he said, if you have to preach, then do. And I hit pause in my car. I was like, what? If you don't have to preach, don't. But if you have to preach, do. And ladies and gentlemen, we have to preach and continue to send the message, because nothing changes if nothing changes. I want to thank every one of you for doing what you do every day for the healthcare industry. Appreciate it.